Okay, great. Welcome. Okay, we're live. Welcome again, everyone, to our weekly webinar every Wednesday from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. To our webinar titled Stopping the Violence in America. And really, it's depending on our guest speaker that usually have a subtopic. But we have some great guest speakers today online who I met while I was invited to speak on safe cities and safe nation, or safe country, safe nation, if you will. It was a Peace Roads event in collaboration with ACLC, which is American Clergy Leadership Conference, and UPF, Universal Peace Federation, which is actually hosting this webinar. It was bringing the community and police officers, retired police officers together, backing the blue. So today we have two speakers, Dr. Rita L. Pritchett, who is Associate Chaplain of the Chicago Police Department, retired police officer. And we have Dr. Sylvester Baker, a psychologist, inspector of the Dalton Police Department, and a retired sergeant in the Cook County Sheriff's Department, also in the same region of Chicago. So today we will listen to their perspective. As you know, that we've had different pastors, different police, different security personnel on to discuss gun violence, but violence in general. As we all know, that a gun is an inanimate object. So therefore, it takes a motive behind that gun to shoot someone, and why people are shooting, why there's so much violence going on. And there's various angles that we can discuss. As I have always shared, you can go from mental health to family values to all those sorts of things, but eventually they must come together, and we must find what we call a united curriculum to really address the issues that are plaguing America and ultimately plaguing the world in the area of violence. As we begin, I would like to start off with, I don't know if a doctor, we ask each one to just give some opening remarks and to share with their angle and how they see it. And then afterwards, we will have a little discussion, open discussion. People will ask questions to the particular presenters. And it's just my great honor, especially my dear sister. She's not just a Dr. Rita L. Pritchett, Associate Chaplain in the Chicago Police Department, a retired police officer, but she is a dear sister. And once you get to know her, she loves humanity and she loves God. So I'd like to ask her, we would like to start off with Dr. Pritchett, who I've known for many years, and she is also a coordinator with the American Clergy Leadership Conference. Dr. Pritchett, is really great to see you. Welcome.
My honor to be before you, my dear brother, Reverend Oliver, to Dr. Baker, to all my brothers and sisters in the household of faith. I'm honored to be on this panel speaking about violence. And just to put it shortly, I'd like the idea of putting down the guns and picking up the branch of peace. Violence is likened to a very, very strong force, and our communities are under siege and being attacked. From my perspective, all are involved. Our young people grow up in that violent environment. They can't go to school. They can't walk through the neighborhood to get to their schools. Then when they get into school, they're being bullied. But there is such a greater dynamic that can make a change in that. And I can go further if you like, or I can defer to Dr. Baker.
Oh, no, please take a few minutes to really give us some insights, and then we can go back. Yeah, please.
All right. From my perspective, young men will do anything to be with young women. Young women should make better choices in the men that they choose. For example, Jacob waited 14 years for Rachel. David killed for Bathsheba. Samson lost it for Delilah. And the king changed the whole nation for Esther. Women can do their part in the change of violence. The very first woman God ever made turned this whole world upside down. And here we are, women in the 21st century. We can set it right back up again. If a young woman knows that a car is stolen and the guy got guns in the car, don't get in the car with him. Don't associate with him. Don't do that. A woman's DNA, our DNA, has the lineage of the whole family implemented, imprinted within her being. Did you know that if you found a dead body, you can identify that body only through a brother or a father? And if there's no immediate family, the only way you are going to trace that DNA is through a woman, because the woman's DNA carries the lineage within her. That's powerful. Young women can be instrumental in stopping the violence by maintaining high standards and choose men who have value for them as women. I walked up to the door many times and I see a guy coming and stand there and he'll say, "Were you waiting on me to open the door?" Well, of course I was. "I thought I saw a gentleman coming. Was I mistaken?" And they always smile to get that opportunity to be who they are, gentlemen. Law enforcement and clergy, my dear brothers, I love you so much. You have mentorship programs. I know you do, Oliver. And they have outreach for them to do this, sports and this and that. Young women should be encouraged with positive messages when it comes to their selection of men. They need to know how to carry themselves as women. No, because you beat me, that doesn't mean you love me. That means that you have no control and you have no respect for me. That is a form of violence. Women should embrace men who have integrity, men who have high standards, and shun the dope dealing, gun toting men that are so widely celebrated. We women have to really understand our power when it comes to men. Our educational system, I think Dr. Oliver touched on that on Saturday. There are limited trade school skills now. Everybody ain't going to college. We should have trade school to teach young men skill sets that will enhance their ability to take care of family. You know, like changing locks on the door, changing tires. Not saying that women can't do it, but men, they are the first source of being a provider. Women are nurturers. I'll give you an example. Why so many young men, when they're in high school, join football team, basketball team, track and all of that? Because they want to attract the young women, the girls. Oh, he's on the basketball team. They want that. They like that. Violence has infiltrated itself with our children. It's all on the TV, all up and down the highway and the byways. Even trickled over and I know this is taking it a stretch in terms of guns and violence, but please consider law enforcement officers are saturated in their consciousness by violence. Go over there and break up this fight. Man with a gun, somebody speeding down the highway, you know, and you have to deal with that right here, right now, standing on your feet. Some of our officers suffer with a form of PTS, post-traumatic syndrome, all that stuff that goes on all day long, and then it infiltrates. Oh my God, then they want to talk about defund the police. What? Those are stressors. Did you know? Because all of this here, you're trying to do your job. President Biden has sent out a federal fact-finding committee to determine why is so many police suicides. It's unprecedented. Unprecedented. I'd like to just add, if I may, our national chair, Women in Ministries, Reverend Rayco Jenkins, is working towards solidifying a police prayer line. I think it's wonderful. Let me tell you why. Violence. Those police officers out there stressed out. It is in the midnight hour when they're all alone. I can't take it. That's when that shall I not, somewhere between then and there. If there were someone available, not a call line where we'll call you back 2 weeks from now, but somebody available right then and there to say, may I pray with you? I believe that violence within our own department, law enforcement, would reduce the violence of suicide tremendously, but the prayer must be done in love. That's my take on how we can begin to consider through the women.
Okay.
Your camera went out, so we weren't able to see you, but
you can hear me.
We can hear you
Thank
loud
you.
and clear.
Oh,
That is so wonderful. I just like to, before I ask Dr. Baker to come on, I think that we can elaborate on that point that you have made. Really what I feel you were saying is that there is power in women, and power in women to be almost mediators or preventers of violence and upholding certain standards, because sometimes men listen to women as well, you know. So the power of a woman and how she can influence the rest of the world, we have not even tapped into that as yet.
no.
And so that's a whole dissertation that we can do. And I really appreciate you bringing that particular point up.
Thank you.
And we're not giving the right messages, or we're not training our young women to be those standard setters. You know, they're not hearing that. But like you said, there's something in their DNA that has the potential to do that. So this is why Women in Ministry is so important. And one of our other organizations is Women's Federation for World Peace, also addresses the power and the significance of a woman in bringing healing in a society. So Dr. Pritchett, thank you so much for that. I want to ask Dr. Sylvester, thank you so much. Dr. Sylvester and I kind of met on Saturday. I didn't really get a chance to talk with him, but he was recommended. We were at the same event on Saturday. Dr. Sylvester Baker, welcome, and we'd love to hear your perspective. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Dr. Pritchett, for inviting me. A little different when we go into stopping the violence now. when I'm gonna start with the causes, and I take it back to the family. The village concept, in my opinion, is somewhat, I'm gonna use the word dead, or is not utilized as much as it was in the generation of those born in the 50s and in the 60s maybe. Then we're talking about broken homes or dysfunctional families, and just because it's a one parent family does not mean that a family is dysfunctional. I came up, my father was in the Army, Korea Army, 23 years. And I seen what 3 times a year when he's on furlough. So I was really raised by my mother. So would that be called dysfunctional? And I'm going to see my father 3 or 4 times a year when on furlough. So dysfunctional family, a one parent family, shall I say, does not make for a bad child. And then also a miseducation, a lack of education. So a lot of our young people, they drop out. You think about the jail population, the prison population, you got a large percentage of those are not high school graduates, And then another cause is a lack of job training. So it's not so well. We do have choices. So we're not going to fact we have choices, but it's a lack of job training or the promoting job training in the community. And then, of course, the young men need those male role models. They bond more with each other than with that older male role model. And that is so crucial for young Black men. They need those male role models. So those are some of the programs that, some of the causes, I would say, for all this violence we're experiencing in our community. Now, I consider myself a role model for every young person I encounter, church, my block, wherever I'm going. If I see a young brother and I can motivate him, stimulate him, or in some kind of way, or tell him something positive, I do that. I'm a role model 24/7, especially around young Black men. I watch how I carry myself because I always conduct myself accordingly, because I know that these young Black men, they really want role models, and my nephews and their friends, and they really take to me positively just in my circle of influence. Now, when I go to the next step, now my solutions, I don't have that many. Well, my solutions are pretty much the police officer has to have a stronger social worker component to his policing style. Now, I'm not saying, safety is the first concern, but you got to throw that social worker mentality into your police work. When you get a lot of police don't want to do that, and then you got that cultural factor. And I'm going to step on some toes now. The white police officers and Spanish police officers don't understand the Black culture. They think they do. They don't understand the gang culture, because even on the job, to the white and Spanish officers, every Black young man was a gangbanger. They're not, but because they don't know our culture, I say, oh no, they're in college. They just want to be, so they not even think about gangs. But from my experience, mostly white officers, Spanish, every Black young guy is a gang. This guy's going to college. He's in college. But they don't know our culture, that we have so many good kids in the community that is just phenomenal. But everybody's a gangbanger until proven not to be. So that's a problem. So the mindset of some officers got to change as it relates to our young people, and they got to interact with them. And a lot of police officers are scared, calling it like it is. They're scared. They want to act like they're not. That's why you're gonna, anytime you can see a white child jump on a police officer, call them out of cage and live, that means they know their culture. They're not as afraid of a white child that retaliates against them as opposed to a Black child. They use deadly force more quickly on a Black child. Now, I hope I'm not sidebarring too much with my conversation. But back to my point, there's got to be more of a social worker component to policing, but keep your safety first now. So I don't want anybody to run the wrong way with it. Keep your safety first, but inject a lot of social worker mentality. Interact with these kids. Talk to them. What's college you going to? You going to play ball when you go to college? Where you live at? And, I went to that high school, and how things going instead of getting out trying to be the tough policeman and instead fearing them. Some cases you got to do that, but you got to, that's where your people skills come in at. That's when your processing quickly and accurately comes in at. You can't process a situation accurately and quickly, then you got a little problem.
Wow.
And then as far as on the police side, they need more intelligence work. They don't even, in my days, I was born in 50. When I would come up with the days when it was just disciples. I'm talking Chicago for those, anybody not live in Chicago. Disciples, Blackstone Rangers, and Vice Lords on the West Side. That's what it was when I was coming up. Jeff Ford, David Boxdale, and Bobby Gore on the West Side. You know, I had an older brother, and so I was kind of knowledgeable about it. Never been on any gang count, but I had to worry about that in my neighborhood on 79th Street. And Rita grew up in the same neighborhood. We didn't have to worry about that. So, but I think the police department needs to help stop the violence, is get their intelligence together, put some money out. I worked undercover narcotics for DEA for 6 months, state police here in Chicago, and I was on the FBI task force for 14 months. So I was a good drug buyer, so I understand that. Intelligence is important. Chicago, in my opinion, I might not know, in the other department, they don't know who's running nothing. You supposed to be in the 50, they knew who to go get. Some went down, they went grab the leadership. I mean, they put all the leadership away and created this void, but now their intelligence should be identified. Who these shooters or hitters, what is the term they use in the neighborhood now, these young folks. I stop some deep cover. I hate to call you the term deep cover like TV, but they need to put some undercovers out here and spend some money for a larger informant base to help them. I'm just going for the police side. I don't see it here. I don't see it. They don't know who shot, who did what, don't know. You know, I can't say what they don't know. I'm not on the job there. But it appears that their intelligence is very weak, extremely weak. So I think on the enforcement side for the city or any other town or county or state, they need to spend a lot more money in intelligence with undercover agents, deep cover, you know, and again, I use that term deep cover, as well as paying informants. You can put up $5,000, $10,000. You find out who these shooters are. The jail is a wealth of information. The sheriff, come on, the jail, everything go down the street, they know in the jail. So put some money out there for it. They will talk. You know, money makes people talk. We all know that and probably agree with that. So that's just to reiterate again, I would say, stop me with help with on the law enforcement side, a more social worker role and in more investment in intelligence.
Amen.
And that's pretty much my thoughts on how we could stop the violence.
Wow, thank you, Dr. Baker. You said a mouthful, actually.
Wow.
There was a couple of different angles that you were addressing. One of the things I think that I think I shared at the Saturday program was that the community is a family, you know, and that particular, the greater family for those communities, or we call the at-risk communities, is America. So it's time for us to look at how much is America really loving those communities, because we need more investment, not only in a few little jobs, but investment in the potential genius. I like what you just said too, which is that we have preconceived ideas. There's a whole preconceived ideas of every young Black guy or at-risk community is like this, but there's such a plethora of those young Black men and women out there who are victims of lack of love, but also are extraordinary. And if they had the right kind of guidance and encouragement, they could become some of the best viable citizens of America.
Yes.
And so I really appreciate what you're saying and what Dr. Pritchett as well was talking about women. And now one day I went to a social worker, and I like what you said. You stay safe, you stay principled, you say what you have to do as a police officer, but you have to also have a social work mind, meaning a mind understanding the community that you're dealing with. And Dr. Pritchett, you know, I was in one of these community centers in the at-risk community, and I saw an article on the wall, and they did a survey, and not only a survey, but a test, kind of a test. They took like 50 young girls, and they specifically young girls, They divided them up into 25 each.
Yes.
25 they gave a job to, and the other 25 they gave a service project to. And they were analyzing their behavior. And one of the behavior was teen pregnancy. The 25 that had a job kept on with promiscuous behavior. The 25 that began to go to service community projects, their behavior, promiscuous behavior, plummeted extraordinarily. And why is that? Because the service had instilled principles in them that is there in all human beings,
Yes.
but it was cultivated through service. So they began to see their value in a different manner, in a different way. My point is, when Dr. Pritchett was talking about young women who are attracted to thinking their value comes from abusive person or certain type of male. But if we have certain type of males or examples, also they need what you call role models, certain role models out there that can help them cultivate their ability to be peacemakers, their ability to change the paradigm of our community. So I want to thank each one of you for sharing those points. Anyone else I would like to bring Dr. Pritchett back on, if you can put her back on the screen.
All right.
The persons. Can we see Dr. Pritchett?
I don't know.
No, I'm talking to the tech group. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, anybody have any questions? I didn't see any questions in the chat that they would like to contribute to this. I see one of our favorite and not favorite, but as well, she's always there to support and give some very deep insights on this particular webinar, and that's Dr. Madeline Alexander. I see her there. I don't know if she has something to add to that as well.
Also, we have Reverend Darren Faulkner from Kansas City here too.
Okay, I can. That'd be great. So let's start with Dr. Madeline Alexander, if you want just to address these 2 points that were brought, some very pertinent points that were brought up by Dr. Pritchett and Dr. Baker.
Okay, yes. Thank you, Reverend Oliver, and greetings, everyone. Praying that you're having an absolutely blessed day. First, I want to speak to Dr. Pritchett. I had the opportunity of actually meeting her in Chicago.
How about
So
that?
greetings, my love. It's good to see you again.
My
I want to
sister.
address the, we talked about women having the ability to talk men down or to, for lack of a better word, persuade them in some positive areas. But I
Yes.
want to be clear that it's a difference between a girl and a woman. A lot of times they might have the age of 20, 21, 22, but they still have the mentality of a child. So I think as we maybe reach out to Boys and Girls Clubs, or we might be able to reach out to some of the churches and speak to those girls to empower them with the knowledge and the mindset of what they actually hold and who they actually are, to speak positive affirmations into them, to give them self-worth and self-value. Because sometimes you have to call a thing out before someone can see it. So I really appreciate your statement. I appreciate your portion of this service. And to Dr. Sylvester, I want to say that's a very good point about the police officers having a social work component. And that's where serve come in. You're serving the community, so you have to know your community base to have those social skills. Some of them are innate and some of them have to be learned and practiced, whether it's diversity training or, you know, as they're coming up through the academy, have that exposure to the community at large of the population that they're actually going to, you know, be working with. But I have really enjoyed your information and I'm processing it. And because when I receive information, I like to apply it. So it's great to have wisdom, but wisdom is knowledge applied. So as for me, hearing from you guys, it's been an honor and a pleasure. And as I go through the rest of my week, I'm going to see how I can apply the statements that have been made, even if I have to call my own grandchildren and see where they are and what they're doing and what's going on, and sit and really listen and process, because they range from 25 to 3. So
Wow.
to sit and listen to where they are, what they're experiencing in the community, and what it looked like from where they sit. So again, I thank you and I applaud you again for being available today.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Alexander. Thank you so much. She's frequently on and sharing some deep insights. Darius, why don't we bring Reverend Darren Faulkner in, if he has something that he would like to contribute. Welcome.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. Thank you for this opportunity, Reverend Dr. Oliver, for the opportunity to say a few words. I have appreciated also listening to, I'm going to say, Mother Pritchard in her remarks, and also from Dr. Baker and Dr. Alexander.
Yes.
I think it is essential that we recognize this problem of violence does not start nor end with law enforcement. I know that the law enforcement is essential to addressing this matter. However, law enforcement was never designed to be social work. So adding a social work component to the department, I think, is innovative and creative, and I applaud that. We here in Kansas City also have a social work component to our law enforcement division. We have 6 different police divisions here in Kansas City, and at each station there is a social worker who can address social work issues that are not intended to be law enforcement matters. Oftentimes, law enforcement, in my experience, shows up to a call for service that really is a social service matter and end up arresting people for something that, if a social worker was involved, may not have even been necessary for law enforcement to handle. So I applaud what is happening, Dr. Baker. I love that idea. It is definitely innovative and creative to add that component as you are protecting and serving the public. One of the other things that I would say is, here in Kansas City, we have an issue that I think is not only apparent to Kansas City, but probably exists all across the country, particularly in communities of color, where everyone is working siloed, working in independence. And part of that has to do with everybody's going after the same pot of money. And so what we're doing here in Kansas City, we have sought to bring to the table all those organizations. I think here in Kansas City, we have more than 25 major organizations, not including some of the smaller grassroots organizations, that are working towards violence prevention, violence interruption. And we have sought to bring all of those entities to the table. Social workers from every discipline, whether it's working in prevention, intervention, or what have you, domestic violence as a whole. And we have sought to share information across lines. And one of the things that I think would be helpful if we could model this across the country is to identify what each city who is seeing this major violence, homicide rate, bullet to skin rate increase, if we could poll what the violence prevention organizations and entities are doing in terms of spending dollars towards prevention and intervention work, and identify what that is holistically as a community. And then once we know what that number is, let's say it's $10 million a year. We in Kansas City have had some institutional partners, like from our colleges and universities, do some research. And for every homicide, it's between 1.2 and 1.8 million per homicide that the city has to spend. That's first responders, that's investigators, that's the detectives, that's the CSI. 1.2 to 1.8 million per homicide. And here in Kansas City, we are spending probably 5 to 6 million a year towards prevention. That's holistically as a community. And our city, unfortunately, is not contributing a whole lot towards that. So what we have sought to do is bring all these partners together and obtain their prevention budget towards violence prevention, and then put together a comprehensive budget that says, here's what it cost us to do preventative violence work in our city. Here's what it would cost to double the capacity of all these entities doing the work. And really make a case for our city, for our county, and for our state to contribute dollars towards this effort. Kansas City is consistently in the top 10 in our nation for one of the violent cities in our country. And so our state even has to play a role. I would say Missouri has 3 of the top 15 most violent cities in our country right now. Kansas City, St. Louis, and Springfield fall within the top 12, top 15 of the most violent cities in our nation, and they're right here in Missouri. So we're taking this all the way up the chain, from the city government to our county government, all the way to our state government, because everyone has to contribute if we want to reduce violence in our city and in our state. And I'll stop there unless there's some questions.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate what you just said, and it's pertinent. I think this is what I always say: no man is an island. Everybody's an island on themselves, but each island has a particular gift that contributes to the whole. And
Yes,
the
sir.
problem is, how do you bring them together and to see that gift that's over here, the gift over here, to come together to benefit for the sake of the whole. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about that, because this is why we have this webinar. It's informative, but it should also be proactive, meaning
Yes, sir.
we bring in the different angles, because we're dealing with angles. We're dealing with attitudes, we're dealing with races, we're dealing with social, we're dealing with family values. All of those things work in tandem together. And as Dr. Baker had said, coming with a social work mentality or component, and as you had said, that was not the way the police department was designed. But we're finding in this day and time that needs to be another addendum within the construct of our policing. Dr. Baker, did you have, thank you very much for that. Stay on, I want you to stay on. Dr. Baker, do you have anything else to say? Because actually he said a variety of things as well in regards to police officers and some of the attitudes that realities that we're confronted with. Anything else you would like to share, Dr. Baker?
No, I'm pretty good. I'm good.
Yeah. Well, I think he said,
I like the doctor said this, and the pastor said too. I'm just listening now. I'm listening and processing now. So, but That's pretty much all I had to add.
I think he brought up some very good points. Being sensitive to the communities that you're dealing with, and there are root causes to every community of why there's dysfunction. I just like, we look at those kids, and I always tell this story. 1980, we were out making some funds, when we were young, but it was for the church. And I was on 42nd Street. I was on 42nd Street in Times Square. And we were trying, for the church, we were making a couple of dollars many years ago. And one of our kids that at-risk kids were out there, and they surrounded me, they asked me, can I buy something? And they did the okie doke. I think they had $50, $100. Next thing you know it, my $100 was gone, right? And I heard the Spirit of the Lord, God said,
Okay.
everything works in a split second.
Mm.
And I think he said that in a millimeter of a second. And I just looked at the young man. I was surrounded. Those kids were not playing. You know what I'm talking about, Dr. Baker. They were not playing. They don't have any they don't value almost human life at that point. They're almost like the zombies. And I looked at him, and somehow God said, put your hand on his shoulders. And I slowly put my hand on his shoulders, and I told him, this time. I said, no, I said, wow, that was good. And he looked at me, he says, what? He thought, okay, now you're getting smart. Now I have a reason to bust you up now, And he said, what? I said, oh, that was good. But this time it's for the church. That's all I said. I said, but it was good. But this time it was for the church. You know what that boy did? I could see his hands shake and his body shake.
Wow.
And he did like this, and he scratched his head like this. He went in his pocket, gave me my $100 back, and he said, I don't know why I like you. And then he walked away, and his boy said, let's get him anyway. Let's beat him. He said, he turned around and he said, did you put a hand on him?
Okay.
And walked away, and they looked for another victim. And from that point on, God was saying, those are my children. They're still part of me. Why would he respond like that? Because he has a base. If he was touched the right way, he has a base to change. How much are we investing in him to touch him in a very special way? So, and I think that's what this conversation is about. Also, how do we collectively come together as a body with different angles, understanding the root cause, understanding all these things, the dynamics, in order to touch, in order to prevent. I like what Dr. Darren Faulkner was saying, prevention and intervention. Those two are, and we know we have to understand what are we preventing and how to prevent it, and when is needed, what is needed to be intervening with the construct. And if you can't intervene or prevent, if you don't, like Dr. Baker said, are not sensitive to the communities that you are policing or serving as a whole. So I want to thank each one of you for sharing all that you've shared. Of course, anyone else like any questions from, I didn't look at the chat box.
I like this is Dr. Pritchett. I like
Dr.
the
Pritchett.
idea, the good sister Alexander, Dr. Alexander was saying that sometimes the immaturity of young women. They may have the chronological years, but they have the mentality of much younger. And I especially like about teaching them very, very young, teach the children well when they are young. That scripture comes to mind, you train up a child the way it should go. And when they are old, they will not depart from it. Old has nothing to do with numbers because you got old fools. But it has to do with maturity. We have to understand, as did Dr. Alexander point out, that these girls become young women. Every woman is not a little girl, but they have childlike qualities. I think that we as mature, seasoned women have to step in and teach our young women. I've had that same situation about the door. I walked up to a door and a young sister would go ahead of me and open the door for me. I push her hand away and ask her, what's wrong with you? You don't see that man standing there? They don't know. They don't know. For an example, someone introduces a lady to a young man. If he's seated, she can say, it's nice to make your acquaintance. I'll excuse your seat. That lets him know, I know I'm a lady and you're supposed to stand in the presence of a lady. But all of that they're talking about, oh, that's all old hat. They don't do that. Who is they don't do that anymore? And across the board, we've lost the respectability as it pertains to our roles in society. Men don't remove their hat when they enter public buildings anymore. Women rarely require that a gentleman holds the car door open while they are seated, or to hold their elbow when they're walking down the street. So somewhere along the line, that process of respectability is fractured. When you have that kind of dynamic, it ebbs away at the whole nucleus. Children are taught respect at home. You don't call your parents by their first names. Children don't play hit at their parents. They don't do that. That first respectability comes at home. You learn to respect authority, which are your parents, in the beginning as children. When you go to school, you learn to respect that adult. The scripture is clear. It says you are to obey he who has the rule over you. So when you ebb away at those little small nuances, then you open the door for the adversary to come in and flip the whole trajectory backside. So we have work to do, not just verbally, but in action. I think the poet wrote, I'd rather see a sermon than to hear one any day. I believe what I see, you shall know them by the fruit they bear.
Yes.
Thank you for including me.
Oh, thank you for coming on. I would like, especially, I have Dr. or my dear sister Barbara Mosley Marks, who has worked over the years with what we call character education aspects of kids who are dealing with love issues, true love issues, and that kind of. Dr. Mosley, Barbara Mosley Marks, Dr. Marks, if she can come on and just share a few words, because I think it's in one of her avenues dealing with the principal etiquette that are not being taught to our children today.
Amen.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm sorry, but you may also hear. But there's a lot of external work being done on our home. So I will share just a little
Yeah.
and stop there to prevent you from hearing the extra noise. But um, one of the points that we have shared is in terms of character education. If you want someone to respect you, you have to respect yourself first, because you tell people how you want to be treated. And in that regard, you are saying to the public, this is my value, but you cannot tell the person, you have to respect me because I say so. No, you have to respect yourself first. And unfortunately, we can't project what we don't know. And it behooves us, those who know better, to do better. And so we have to help not only our young people, but I found also in terms of the parents, certain points are lacking and they need the help also. So I came in when the previous speaker, and I'm not sure who that was talking about men not holding doors, not escorting, etc. Unfortunately, those finer points are almost non-existent right now. So those of us who know better should come together and exemplify those qualities so that especially our younger generation can benefit from it. Because as you know, the family is the most important unit. However, if the family is intact, if the father doesn't know what it means to be a father, how can you expect him to exemplify to his sons what it means to be a father? I had the experience years ago where one man, I was on my way to a meeting, and this person came up to me on the, I was taking the train, and I guess he wanted to be seen talking with me. And I asked him if he has sons. I asked him what he does, and he said he's beating the system. I said, how can you beat the system? And then I asked him, I said, do you have sons? He said, yeah, I have sons. I said, well, what example are you showing to your sons by beating the system? It's a good thing we were standing there amidst other people, because I felt he was so angry. I felt he was going to hit me for the words that I just asked a simple question. So in order to protect our young people, we have to help. It's not, the old saying, it takes a village to raise a child. That is no longer, that is still necessary. It takes a village to raise a child. And I hope that that can be implemented soon. Reverend Oliver, forgive me, I came in late and came from completely different thought process. So forgive me if I stop here and I can come on another time.
Yes, I don't wonder why you think you were in a different thought process, even though you were had to hear everything you said correlated to everything has been said and you probably missed. So we thank you so much for what you have said. It benefited and it contributed greatly to this process and to this conversation. And I'm really thrilled about it. But before we begin to end, we're about 4 minutes out. I would like to, and I want to get the name, Ann Pritchard.
Pritchett.
Huh? No, we
It's
have an Ann Pritchard. Pritchard.
Oh, wow.
and-
It's Pritchett. Isn't
and-
that amazing?
No, we don't have an Ann Pritchett. We have an Ann Pritchard
Okay.
with it CHARD.
Hardy. Wow. Isn't that something?
So, and she said, why don't the schools have a safe place for children and that needs help with something that they
Hello?
can go to? I personally believe that
Hello?
especially the teens would not be so
Yes.
into committing violence if they can get the help they need. They commit violence because they may be hurting from something going on in their lives. So
Yeah.
as we conclude, if you'd like to say concluding remarks, and Pritchard.
Thank you for reading that. I work with a lot of kids because I travel the country because I'm a award-winning author and do a lot of different things. And I talk to a lot of kids, and a lot of them have so much pain and struggles at home where they're not
Yeah.
getting their needs met. So they're hurting inside, but they're afraid to like talk it out to, you know, somebody that'll listen because they feel like no one listens to them. So that's why I mention it, because it's so important that the kids have a safe place that they can talk out things that they're dealing with, that they can feel that, you know, they can get the help that they need. I've even helped a lot of kids, even had to keep them for 2 weeks at a time sometimes because their parent wasn't even around. That's not good at all. But thanks for bringing that up. I think it's important. I think the schools and even the churches possibly should have like a safe room or something with a counselor or something there that could help give them the resources they need to get what they need help with. Because otherwise, if they keep hurting, they're just gonna keep going on into the adult life and then explode, and they get into the drugs, the alcohol, the gangs, all the crimes.
Yes, yeah, this is true.
Really
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, it's very important. I guess we don't really think about it, but that already delves into what Dr. Darren said today, Faulkner. Prevention, intervention, prevention.
Mhm.
You know, prevention, you can, and it is true, you know, teen suicides, all those type of things, because they're hurting inside. And we're not addressing that hurt, especially in that puberty time. There's so much they're dealing with, and their peer pressures, all those things. And a lot of kids would probably, if you did a really good survey, a lot of those kids at the so-called at-risk neighborhoods probably are forced in some behaviors and looking for that safe place where they don't have to prove themselves in behaviors that are really going against the grain of their true character. And I thank you so much for those words that you just shared, and look forward to you to come on and tell us a little bit about what you're doing as we put all of these points together. Dr. Darren, we're going to call because we need a show on the road, if you will. You know, the church is still a very powerful tool. A show on the road where we go and we bring I like your email, your common good, how all of us can unite because we are all born from the humanity of man and born from God. That we can unite whether we're black, white, or yellow on a common good. You know, all the other situations that comes up, you know, our division has nothing to do with the true common good that we all have placed in us when God breathed the breath of life into our nostrils in the beginning. Yeah. Amen. Amen. So I really like that.
Amen.
And so we really want to thank Dr. Pritchett. I want to thank you for what you shared. Dr. Sylvester Baker, we want to thank you for what you said. And I just want to make it clear, you know, he mentioned about white police officers, Hispanic police officers. There is not, those things are not said for separation. Those things are said only so we can find solutions.
Amen.
And begin to bridge what is necessary to bridge, not only for our community, for communities at large, which is the American community. And I want to thank you, Dr. Baker. Thank you so much, Dr. Pritchett, Reverend Dr. Falk, Darren. I want to make sure I'm not calling you Faulkner or Faulkner and Pritchard. Thank you for coming on, and all those who are here. I want to thank you. I don't know, we'll be traveling next week. So I don't know, we'll have one next Wednesday. We will let you know, because a lot of us who are orchestrating this every week will be out of the country in like a whole different time zone. So it might be difficult. But I want to bring everyone back on there. And I'm going to ask people to do homework. Dr. Madeline, also, think about what Dr. Pritchett said as well about our women. We talk about the boys, but I declare, when I'm listening to those girls out there now, some of the girls have nastier mouths than the boys, because they're trying to prove something, I guess, So we need to discuss that, how we can really have intervention programs for our young girls who play a critical role in the peace building process. And I want to thank again everyone for being on. We want to, if I don't see you next week, we'll definitely see you a week after next. I will be in contact with everyone, because we look forward to coming on and having even another deep group discussion. God bless you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for coming on. Wayne Hankins,
Thank you.
God
Dr.
bless.
Mosley, Marks, thank you for your points. Dr. Healy,
Thank you so much.
Son Willett, all you brothers and sisters, come on. We love you, and we'll see you next week.
Many blessings.
Well,
all.
take care.
Wonderful,
All right, take care, everybody.
wonderful presentation
All
to all of you. Thank you.
Many
Thank you.
blessings, and thank you for your work.
You're
Very
welcome.
good, very
Thank
good.
you.
Yes.